The engines are revving, but no one is going anywhere anytime soon. Cross-border truck drivers in the SADC region carry everything from food produce to machinery, and it seems that to be a successful player in this business, patience is the name of the game.
We take sometimes 3-4 days. Like now, I've got already 2 days, but it's not yet. We're still waiting for tomorrow, and we're not sure that tomorrow to be ready or not, especially when we're going to deliver those things in Zimbabwe. But when we're in transit, sometimes they got 2 days only, then we proceed. But like this water, what I've brought today, I'm going to offload it in Zimbabwe. Then I have to wait for them, I think, for 3-4 days minimum.
Behind me is Beitbridge Border Post, which is known as one of the busiest points of entry in the SADC region and the gateway to Africa's largest economy, South Africa. Traffic volumes here used to average at around 3,500 vehicles per day during peak times. This, however, has been significantly decreased due to the fact of the electronic systems that have been implemented. Some import and export companies still do feel that typical travel times are 1/3 driving and 2/3 waiting.
It would be absolutely magnificent if we can have cooperation between all the different countries so that they can clear the documents at the South African border post, and that same clearance goes all the way through to the DRC. They don't have to stop at every border post and have clearance there again. Because it takes you 3 to 4 times longer to send a vehicle up there and back, the basic effect is that it costs you 3 to 4 times more to send it up there and back. And I think because of that, I think that's got a whole effect on the industry, and we basically we're not competitive to the rest of the world.
The North-South corridor is one of the main trade routes in the Southern African region, and the lack of coordination between government agencies on either side of the posts are just some of the frustrations experienced. This has substantially increased the risk of corruption. George Chilo is a cross-border truck driver and has been in the business since 1981.
The bosses want to see what is happening there. They'll say, George, what are you still waiting? Please push, because he's not seeing there. So it's now up to me and the operator, how I should talk to him, what language to use for him to do me a favor to go. You can wait until your turn comes. But what they don't want is to be rough and rude to them, because they can leave you while waiting. They'll pick somebody else, because your language is bad to them. So you need to be soft and humble to them.
During the past decade, intra-Africa trade has improved considerably, making up 12% of the continent's total trade when contrasted against the low levels of 2 to 5% in the 80s and 90s. However, the bottlenecks and red tape have had a ripple effect on businesses and consumers alike.
What typically happens, like you explain, is the higher transaction cost. And what it means is that this amounts to higher cost goods on the shop shelf. So you'll find a lot of goods that originate in South Africa or that pass through South Africa can be found at much higher prices the further up you go into the continent. And that's the result of this issue you speak about. Some firms can pass on the increase to the consumer, some cannot, and then choose to trade elsewhere.
Government and the private sector are working together to find the key to unlock the $1 trillion potential that lies in African trade integration.
One of the reasons why we may have been reticent is because we've been domestically focused. And obviously, if you want to play a leading role in the region, you have to make sure your domestic house is in order, that you provide the necessary example, the leadership example that your neighbors and counterparts in the region are looking for. So if one looks at Africa's future, for example, as a supplier of skills and human capacity and intellectual capacity to the world, a young labor force, potentially by the middle of the century, then you need to look at the regulatory environments in each of the economies that plan to do that, and we have to set the example in that respect. We have to look at the education systems and gear up our youngsters from now to make sure that when that opportunity comes about, they're ready to go.
The call for streamlining procedures is getting louder, and although some border posts may still be undergoing teething problems, the one-stop border post in Chirundu is making headway.
We have to improve the infrastructure if we want to increase intra-regional trade. Otherwise, we will reach those sorts of bottlenecks. And the North-South corridor is linked to the tripartite program, and it does eventually envisage that there will be those infrastructure developments and also systems improvement. One of the highlights of the North-South corridor program to date is the border post at Chirundu between Zimbabwe and Zambia, where the time to cross has been cut dramatically, and I think that's an example of what can be achieved.
Until one-stop border posts are fully implemented and make cross-border trade a more seamless operation, truck drivers like George Chilo will have to stay in the waiting game just a little while longer. Tumisho, Maganyele, Johannesburg.